Hi, everyone. This is Claudia, and I want you to come out of this presentation, not just yet, with three key main takeaways, which are to go against the grain, to follow your passion, and to find a community that helps you do so. So I'm going to take you on a quick journey on how my life took a spin during the last couple months of 2021. So I'm Italian. I live in London, but I was born from a beautiful place called Sicily, which is an island where people can benefit from great food, amazing Mediterranean sea waters, and a great amount of art and history. But I was born in a small village. And like many small villages out there, it meant that our academical studies were often confined to more traditional subjects, such as literature or maths. So going to the art school, for example, wasn't something as highly recommended in order for you to secure a proper job. And coming from a place where 20% of the population is unemployed, you would imagine how important it would be for your family to make sure that their children would follow that kind of A to B path in order for them to have these more established careers, such as lawyers or doctors or teachers, especially if you're a woman. I lived in a place with very strong stereotypes. So people would often raise an eyebrow at little girls like me who would rather play with dinosaurs and computers than with dolls. But I never let that influence me. But we'll see how this can really impact a woman's life and how important this is. Also, being the internet not as developed as we know it nowadays meant that our connections were kind of were fitting into very small boundaries, as well as our wider social awareness and the acceptance that we had of anything that was a little bit more outside of the box. Now, as I was saying to you, I always walked on the edges of that box. So here's me kind of breaking tradition and following my passions, such as playing the piano, playing football or soccer, and playing video games. And to this day, I still like to play lots of things. But why is this important? Because I really want to raise awareness on how a woman's environment can highly influence their choices and their future careers. And as well as the place that they're born into and the skin that they're born into and the system that they're born into. And I want to tell those women out there that they're not alone. And I want to tell those women to not give up. And why is it important to not give up? Well, just because it's not acceptable anymore to be thinking of a female role model, for example, in technology, and not having a single name popping up in our heads out of general knowledge. Whereas if I was to mention to you names such as Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, or Elon Musk, you would immediately know who I'm talking about without having to Google them. So for example, I wonder how many of you know the name of this woman. So some of you might think she's beautiful, which is obviously correct. Some of you might think she was an actress, which would also be correct. But I wonder how many people might think that she could also be a self-taught inventor, because in that case, it would also be correct. Her name is Hedy Lamarr. She was born in 1914 from a Jewish family, and she experienced both world wars. She fled her hometown at the age of 19, escaping an unhappy marriage. And she lived in London for a while, and then she settled in America, where she pursued a very successful acting career. But ever since she was a child, she always had an interest towards machines and how everything worked. So even when she was acting, you would often find her on her acting breaks in her trailer, working on some new machine or developing some new technology. She was also on a mission to stop the Nazis from communicating, so their radio interactions. And so today, many years later, possibly too many years later, she's finally been identified as the pioneer of technologies such as the GPS, the Bluetooth, and the Wi-Fi. And to me, that was incredibly inspiring. And I'm not trying to compare myself, absolutely not, to this amazingly achieving woman. But I also want to share with you how I'm trying to improve our society in my own little world. I'm a primary school teaching assistant in London, helping children with special needs. I've been doing this job for over 7 years, and it has really taught me that every human being with the right support and attention can really thrive. And I make sure that I always share values of equality and inclusion on my daily practice. And for example, I've always implemented a formation of a girls' football team in all the schools that I worked at, as well as being open to discussing topics on mental health or LGBTQIA plus social issues. And we're quite hopeful when it comes to the new generations, because we know that the tools that these children are given nowadays can really help them create and hopefully structure a more equal society for everyone. So when did the career change happen? Well, it all happened in March 2020, when the UK went into their first lockdown. So even though I was required to go into work every day, I also had the chance to stop and think about my own life, just like everyone else. And all of a sudden, I started looking back at those creative skills that had been dormant within me, but still present. So I started looking for those kind of jobs that, you could carry out remotely and from the comfort and safety of your own home. So that's how I came across the role of a user experience designer and a user interface designer. And when I found out about these roles, it was incredible because it was the perfect combo that I was looking for. All of a sudden, I could put together the skills that I was using as a teacher, such as human interaction, accessibility, attention to the user's needs, and empathy, of course, with creativity, which was something that was missing in my life. So what about Webflow? Well, when I found out about Webflow, it was just like finding the perfect Tetris piece that would save you just when you're about to reach the top. I remember being blown away by the amazing potential that this software has. And also, it was incredible to see my designs finally coming into life, into the shape of a fully functioning, responsive website. And it was really easy to understand their structure as well, thanks to the amazing visual interface that makes Webflow the perfect developing tool for a designer. I also had a small crush on flexboxes when I finally understood how to use them. So I started looking into everything Webflow out there. So like YouTube videos, forums, and I want to give a big kudos to Webflow University for creating such an amazing top-notch content and to let it available out there for free for the community. And it really helped me out get started with the platform. I was only a couple weeks into my relationship with Webflow when this amazing global open house event took place into something called Gather Town, which I'd never seen before. And being myself a gamer, you can imagine how happy I was to be taking part into a Webflow event inside a video game. It was just incredible. And I finally felt that feeling of fitting in. So I can say that I had finally found my box, or my div, if you prefer. So as everything got really exciting and stimulating, I felt the urge of having a team around me, a group of like-minded people that could tell me whatever I was doing was right or wrong. So that's when I dropped a simple message on the Webflow Facebook group, asking if there maybe be other women out there who were kind of following the same path or finding themselves in the same kind of position as me. And out of that simple message, I had about 60 positive responses. And I was gobsmacked. All of a sudden, I had 60 beating hearts and 60 pair of eyes waiting for me to do or say something. So I set up a Discord server where we could communicate and a Gather Town space for us to meet and hang out. And this is how Floxys was born. The word Floxys comes from the Latin word flox, which stands for flower or flame. but it's also the scientific name of a beautiful plant that grows in very tough meteorological conditions. And I thought of it of being the perfect metaphor for us women growing in tech. I wanted people in my community to feel included and supported. So I reached out to every member who was joining back then, and even I still do that nowadays, to making sure that they were okay, and also to start asking for some feedback. And the general feel that I got back was that women had finally found a space where they felt supported, but also not afraid to ask those questions that in our heads are sometimes too silly or embarrassing to be asked into wider groups, such as how do you use REM, which to me are still a great rock band. But one of the most amazing messages that I got back from the community was when a couple of girls from India, which at the time was one of the mostly affected countries by COVID, hugely thanked me for giving them the opportunity to go somewhere and meet with other people, even if virtually. And to me, that felt really, really rewarding. I structured our server in a way that people could easily access free resources, some courses which had been recommended collectively by the group, share new ideas, and obviously motivate each other. But why is it important to have such spaces? Which are the difficulties that we as women face in technology, for example? Well, we face discrimination, pay inequality, judgment, and harassment in the worst scenarios. And all these factors bring women in technology to be underrepresented and undervalued, with only 26.5% of us holding leadership positions and only 19% of us forming the female workforce in technology. And these percentages get even worse for women of color, Asian, or Hispanic. And so I want people in my community to feel empowered and to give them that visibility that they deserve. And with this idea in mind, I organize weekly events where members from the community can apply to be the guest speakers and confidently present a topic of their liking, obviously still related to either design or Webflow. And then I would share these events on my own socials, giving their names a presence, as well as starting creating these very much needed role models. To this day, Floxys keeps growing. We've reached over 400 members in a very small amount of time. And we recently also launched our ambassadors program with 11 selected members, who will be covering 11 different countries, and where they will be sharing our values, as well as supporting their little small communities. And once again, reading their messages and their words really contributes to making Floxys the special place that it is today. Our goal will be that of reaching 1,000 members by the end of the year. And maybe, who knows, maybe become the Webflow, Women in Webflow official community. And I can say that I've designed this idea I've designed this community with an idea, which was that of uniting women. And I've developed it with the heart. And for each and every new member that we get and every new event that we organize, it makes it all worth it. So thank you so much, Webflow, for having me here with you and to letting me share my story with you and to let me inspire the world altogether.